Curtis Snell's fault related. Ms. Fishing Hall, would you mind doing the invocation, please?
Gracious and Heavenly Father, we come to you today seeking your guidance. May we be filled with generosity of spirit and true compassion and love for all life. We pray for social justice, for the alleviation of poverty that condemns so many people to life of misery, of hungerness, sickness, and without hope. We pray for those overseas, separated from their loved ones who are in harm's way. We pray for them and their wounds in body and mind. We pray for these things with humility. May we all learn peace that comes with forgiving and the strength we gain in loving. We pray for peace throughout the world, our continued trust in you. May you keep your loving hand on us all and on the Cherokee Nation. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks, Ms. Fishing Hall. Roll call.
Curtis Rayleigh. Here. Bill Anglin.
Here.
Bill John Baker. Jack Baker.
Here.
Harley Buzzard.
Here.
Julia Coates. Bradley Cobb. Joe Crittenden.
Here.
Jody Fishinghop. Here. Janelle Fulbright. John Garvin. Chuck Hoskin Jr.
Here.
China Glory Jordan.
Present.
Curtis Snell.
Here.
Chris Soap.
Here.
David Thornton. Kara Callan Watts. Honey, we do have a quorum.
We have a quorum. Next order of business is approval of the August 28th regular session minutes.
So moved.
Second. Moved and seconded that the minutes stand as written. All in favor? Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. The minutes stand approved as written. Next are reports. Ms. Wright, Marshal Service.
Good afternoon. I got my report
Before
in.
you get started, I want to say thanks for the service that one of your officers, Mr. Kingfisher, at my store last night. There was a car that almost ran into our fuel pumps, and he was one of the ones that helped catch the guy. That was scary.
Yeah, hitting the fuel pumps would have been.
Yeah.
I did get my report in, so if there's any questions on it, I'll answer that. And last meeting, I don't know if we decided I would get you the federal regulation on sexual assault or not. So I brought a copy for everybody if I was supposed to do that. And they've changed it even since I worked the case. Because the legal age now is 16, not 18. But if you look, there is that 4-year period that I was talking about built into one of the points of whether or not to charge someone or not. So the 4-year difference alleviates the problem that Dr. Cobb had brought up previously.
You have any questions for Ms. Wright? China, did you have a question? I guess not. Thank you for the report. Second report is Ms. Hammond's, Justice Department.
I'm here for Ms. Hammond this afternoon. She's in court, I believe, Tulsa County. A report was submitted, and the only thing I have to add to the report is our 2 new attorneys are being sworn in today in Oklahoma City, and I think that's all I have. Do you have any questions?
Any questions, comments for Mr. Warden?
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. We have the Election Commission report. Moving on down to Tax Commission, Ms. Swepston.
She's going to let me butt in real quick.
Oh, okay. Right
I
ahead.
forgot to announce that this weekend we had put flyers in Pryor High School, Jay High School, Stillwell, Sequoia, Keys, and Tahlequah for an Explorer program. Saturday is our meet and greet for the Explorer programs to try to get kids involved in that. So I just wanted to make that quick announcement that we will be doing that Saturday.
Is there, go ahead, Ms. Fisher.
What is the Explorer program, Sharon?
It's a leadership program. It's actually a Boy Scout Learning for Life program, and they have explorers in fire departments and police departments and other areas. So it's from the 9th grade to the age of 20. They meet and we give them knowledge on police, all facets of police work. We build in the leadership qualities that is with the Boy Scouts, and then they do competitions once a year, you know, much along the same line as Boy Scouts do, because it's learning for life.
Jordan, did you have a question?
Yeah, Sharon, I guess I was just a little bit behind the times here. This handout, again, tell me what was this for?
Last month we talked about the sexual assault, sexual abuse, rape, and there was a debate on how to formalize the laws and whether or not you say 18 or 16 or whatever. And Dr. Cobb had brought up the point also that the age difference makes a big difference when you're young. So in all of that, there was a motion to look at the federal law pertaining to that so that there wouldn't be that age discrepancy maybe. And so I offered to bring in the federal law, and that's what this is, and that's how they determine whether or not you've committed a crime. Like if you were 17 and the person was 14, there's only a 3-year difference there, so it wouldn't be a crime because it says 4 years.
And the council, I think, in one of the questions that they answered for the work group was to use the federal guidelines.
And that's what I provided.
And just so we're all clear, the federal guidelines brings it all the way down to age 12.
Correct. At 12, you cannot give consent. 16 is your age, but if there's on top of 16, if you had a 17-year-old and a 14-year-old, you still wouldn't, because you also have that 4-year criteria. So at the age of 16, if you had a 15 and a 20-year-old, it would be a crime because the 15 cannot give consent to a 20-year-old.
So age 12 would be like,
No consent, whether you're 13, 15. At age 12, they do not have the capacity to give consent.
so are we saying that if there's a 4-year, if we have a 12-year-old and we have a 16-year-old, that'd be a 7th grader and a 10th grader. How does the consent work?
That's what this says. At age 12, you can't give consent.
Okay, so we have a 13 and a 17-year-old. That's 8th grade and 11th grade.
Right, but if there was only like 3 years and 11 months, 3 years and 9 months, and they would still be able to give consent because there's not the 4-year difference. It has to be 4 years or more.
Okay, 13 and 17-year-old is what I said. So a 13-year-old could consent to sleeping with a 17-year-old if there's the 48-month difference there.
Yeah. There's less than 4 years. 4 years and above, they wouldn't be able to.
I don't recall, but I'm sure you know what's Oklahoma's.
And I don't think Oklahoma's brought down like this. I'd have to look it
It's
up.
just a straight age,
Straight
isn't it?
age.
Okay. And it was like 15, wasn't it?
It may be. It's 16 or 15.
So
16.
if you're under 16 in Oklahoma, it doesn't matter whether you give consent or not. It doesn't matter what the age difference is.
That's correct.
And see, the law, the federal law used to be 18, 16, and 12, and now it's just 16 and 12 with that 4-year span.
Those will come up.
Yeah,
Discussion
I was
later.
just making sure I understood what this document was given to us for.
Mr.
Thank you
Buzzer?
very much.
Just a minute,
Sharon,
Sharon.
who's your contact person in Jay for your program this weekend?
Well, the meet and greet is down here. Rodney was going to do that, and he has withdrawn, so the closest person we have up that way is John Ketcher. He's an Explorer instructor. So,
The guy that's over the Boy Scout is Gary Bryan also. Maybe travel number 2. Give him a call. I'll give him a call.
well, we posted it in the high school so that,
Okay, well, I'll just call
at
him
the
see if
J
he
High
gets
School,
it.
in case there were any people of that age would be interested.
Okay, I'll call him. Thank you.
Hold on, Ms. Count Watts.
My point was that everything has been included in our document that was being discussed, so,
Okay.
thank you.
Mr. Thornton.
I was just wanting to discuss the age deal and what later.
Okay, well, that would be coming up under old business, okay. I guess that's it. Thanks, Sharon.
Thank you.
Ms. Webster?
Before Sharon comes up, can I ask Mr. Morton a question for Diane? Would that be possible?
Ms. Martin?
I'm just getting started a little slow today, and he came up so quick and sat down so quick, I missed him. Can you just kind of give us a rundown on the Delaware situation as far as the pass-through money for housing?
I do not know that information. I can find it.
I mean, I know that we act as the conduit for the Delaware housing money. And maybe, Melanie, you probably are going to be able to enlighten us. I just want to make sure I have a clear understanding. They get their housing money, but they have to run it through us because they're not federally recognized. And we're retaining a small amount to administer the program.
That's right. It's approximately $500,000 per fiscal year. We've entered into that agreement, I believe, 2006 money, 07 money, and I just signed an amendment for 08 money. And they've got a substantial amount that they've not spent. It's pretty much gathered up. But it's available to them. Out of each year's Indian housing plan, we retain $20,000 of that, and the purpose of that is for we do an annual self-assessment that's required by HUD, and we do compliance that's required by HUD, and that amount we retain to do those kinds of activities.
Melanie, do we have any liability? I'm sure they wouldn't do this, but let's say there was some challenge or misuse.
That's right.
Do we retain any liability as the conduit for them getting their money?
Anytime we sub-grant like that, we do retain the liability as the grantee because we're responsible, we're receiving the funds, and no matter who we pass it on to, the contractor or a sub-grantor, we're still responsible for compliance. So what we've done is in our agreement with them, we've included all of those requirements, and if they do not meet those requirements, then we withhold money, we can reclaim money, and they've waived sovereign immunity for us to.
Does HUD additionally audit them?
They won't audit them separately from us, they'll audit their funds as part of our overall review.
All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Sharon? Promise.
Not a problem. I think you have my report, so if you have any questions on that, I'd be happy to answer those. And I put a note in here. I think that we did have our commission meeting, but also I just wanted to update you on the Tuesdays and Thursdays. We're still averaging about 2. So need to help if you can get the word out that we are open in the telephone office till 6 on Tuesdays and Thursdays because we're not seeing a lot of traffic for that.
Have you been able to do any advertising?
It's been in the papers, it's been on the radio, so we're trying to get the word out. So,
And then an additional question. Am I looking at this legislation that you're proposing right, that a business farm would not have the limitation
Correct.
of the 4 tags.
Correct.
It will just be
The individuals,
individuals. So if they have their own corporate farm,
then they're not, the exemption does not hold to them. They can have more than 4.
okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Questions for Ms. Flexen? Sharon, would you mind updating us on the compact negotiations?
Okay, I'll try.
Melanie may know more than I do on the tobacco.
Okay. We have submitted a draft. I'm not sure if it's in the governor's hands yet or not, but we have submitted another draft. I know that there is one area that we're having negotiations on, which is the most favored nations. I think that's very important to us. I think it needs to be in there, and I know that there is some negotiation going on with that. I don't think we agree exactly on the wording, but as far as I know, there is a draft, and we're just waiting, and I think the chief is trying to get something set up to go back and he can have a sit down with the governor and treasurer and each of them on that and try to get it something nailed down. But we are moving forward, trying to work on that compact.
So they're just one provisional hang-up there.
That I know of.
Yeah, that's as of today.
That's as of today.
Yeah, because the council's starting to get calls from the smoke shop owners.
They are, and I'm sure that the ruling that happened in Osage County with the Feathers case has a lot to do with those, because the ruling was that the Feathers smoke shops did get the 25% tax rate. And I know that there's some type of hearing tomorrow, and I'm not sure what all's going on with that, and I need to find out the specifics on it, and I don't know what that will happen from that tomorrow, but it's also in Osage County.
Ms. Jordan and Ms. Fulbright.
What is the, or do you or can you enlighten us as to what, if any, difference there is between what the troops are trying to negotiate and what we're trying to negotiate? Are we substantially the same, or is there a big difference?
To my understanding, what I've seen in the past, the differences are the Creeks wanted to add a nation-to-nation clause that allowed them to purchase from another nation. There's issues with that because of the cases that's already been made, that you can purchase from another nation, Indian tribe, but you can't sell that to non-Indians. So unless you can provide some regulations, some provisions that you're going to be able to say, I bought this product and I'm only selling it to our citizens, and you can track that, the state's not going to want to agree to that, because if you sell it to non-Indian, then the state's taxes apply
But
to
we
that.
don't have that.
We don't have that in ours.
Okay.
There was one other piece that they had. I'm trying to remember what it. Do you remember what the other one was? Or did they take that out? I thought they took the wholesale part out. I think the nation to nation is the only item that was really left in there, on there. They had a couple more, but I think they pulled them.
Well, I just know from what I've seen over the papers and in the news that their negotiations had broken down with the state, and I just wondered if that was going to affect us in any way.
I don't know. We were hoping that everybody could come to an agreement, but I know that's one piece that they had in there. So we did.
Ms. Fulbright?
Yes, David and I would like to know if there's been any progress made on our Southall Tag Agency.
I sent an email to Ms. Wood yesterday, I believe, letting her know that we were back on top and re-looking at it. We've just been pulled aside with the tobacco and budgets and everything, but we're back looking at those again.
She had called me
so.
last week, and I told her when I saw you, I'd ask.
Yes, and I did send her an email yesterday. So.
Mr. Buzzard?
Sharon, do we know how many tribes have the most favored nation clause in the contract yet?
Almost all the new ones that I've seen have most favored nations in it. Now there's a little issue with the most favored nations. The new ones say, and I'm not going to quote it exactly, but I'll just paraphrase what it means. If you adopt the Most Favored Nations Act, you're adopting their compact as a whole. In other words, you take the whole thing. You can't pick and choose this paragraph or this paragraph. The way ours is worded currently now, we can pull out, if they change a rate and someone gets a better rate, but we don't like the rest of it, we can just pull the part that pertains to that rate. That's the way our compact reads now. It says any part of. And the way they want it is that if you invoke Most Favored Nations, then you invoke the whole compact, and you can't just pick and choose the pieces that you want.
Thank you.
Mr. Thornton?
Are you taking any applications for new smoke shops?
Sure. In fact, we just licensed 2. At the last commission meeting, last week, we licensed 2 more shops. Now, the one has not opened yet, but he did get his license.
Thank you.
Mr. Stoll?
Yeah. Sharon, could you talk about the surtax changes for the
Okay.
year-to-date on that?
Okay, the surtax ended March, whatever the date was in March 28th. So there is no surtax from that point forward.
Right. So but that's the difference, the $2 million is the difference
Yes.
between
It's a huge
that
difference.
decision. So.
Yes. Now, I will let you know that if you'll look at the refund from the state, it jumped with a huge jump in that. And we've got one more quarter payment coming for this year. We'll get it in October for July, August, and September. So if that is compared to that, then we may be back up about even where we had projected that we would be. The surtax went away, but then we got the additional
And the
state
additional
refund.
State refund is,
Right.
what is that?
It's the $4. We get 50% back on the state. And those, see, they weren't paying the full rate because they were doing retail to retail. So we were getting the $1.50. But now we get $4 on all of that, which has made a tremendous jump in the refund from the state.
You're kind of projecting it'll be.
The last refund was a little over $1 million, and I'm going to say that the next quarter should be right around that mark.
Any other questions? Thank you, Sharon. Welcome. Ms. Hanby, self-governance. Melanie, do you have anything for self-governance?
Madam Chair.
Oh, you're it?
I'm it.
You're it.
Madam Chair and members of the committee, my name is Don Vaughn, and I'm here for Vicki Hanby today. She called about lunchtime and said that she had a health issue with her son, and she was not going to be able to make the meeting today. I think that you have a report from her in your packet. If you have any questions on that report, I'll be glad to return questions to her, and then she can get you a follow-up answer if you need one.
Any questions?
Do you have a copy of her report in your packet? Okay.
Any questions or comments for Mr. Vaughn? If not, thank you for hearing.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Hummingbird, Gaming Commission.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, fellow council members. I hope my report made it in on time. I'm not sure if I got it. Hopefully, I've been so busy flitting around the countryside, I might have gotten it in a little bit late. But if you have it there, if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer any that I can on that. If not, I do have a couple of new items. Oh, okay.
Ms. Fulbright?
I don't have a question, but I have a positive comment. I've heard so many nice things about ticket in and ticket out from the employees at Roland, and they said the gaming commission spent many hours down there fixing it all up for them, and they really do like it. It made their job a lot easier.
We are right in the middle of the Advantage, our new accounting system rollout, and the ticket in or ticket out, the TITO, what we call it, has been widely accepted. Everybody seems to love it. The new system is working out nicely. We have been putting in a lot of hours. We probably put in close to 150 hours over a period of 2 weeks per employee just getting this system up and running in both Salisaw and Roland. So we've been quite busy. And our next phase is to take it to West Island Springs, where we'll be doing about 1,275 machines at that property. And then in December, we'll be doing roughly 2,400 machines at the Catoosa property. So we're going to be a little busy. But thank you very much. We've been working really hard with C&E and with the other technicians to get that done, and because we can see the benefit of having that system in place.
Any other questions? Mr. Hummingbird?
I do have a couple of things I'd like to share with you after the
All right,
questions.
I know recently you went to Seattle to the tribe. What was your impressions of the tribe?
Their facility is top-notch. I'm fortunate to have their Gaming Commission Director as my Vice Chair of the National Tribal Gaming Commission Association. and their facility just opened up in June, last half of June, and their casino is extraordinary. Their hotel is 5-star in my book. There's nothing bad that we had to say about it. The conference facilities were outstanding. Everybody loved our conference. We had about 187 people show up, which is about our average. But the facility is great. I wish you could have been there with us.
The location is almost perfect. If you're going to pick one in the United States, that would be growing and all that going on.
Their location is nice. I mean, it's about 40 miles north of Seattle, right on the Sound, right on the bay. So they have the beauty of the mountains in the back and the Sound and the water in the east, or excuse me, in the west. So they have a prime location.
Thank you,
Any other? Continue, Jamie. You had something to report?
Yes, just yesterday, in fact, about 5 o'clock yesterday, I received notice that the NIGC is sending over today to the Federal Register the technical standards and the internal control standards that have been the subject of much debate for at least the last 5 years or so. About this time last year, the NIGC published a set of 4 regulations, including those 2, as well as classification standards and a proposed change to the facsimile definition. Along with the Class 2 internal controls and the technical standards, NIGC is going to publish a withdrawal of the classification standards and the definition change, which both those actions reflect the recommendations on behalf of both tribal regulators and those in the industry that would be affected by those proposed regulations. So we view this as a good sign. We don't know exactly when they're going to be published or exactly when they're going to become effective, but what we have seen in the past is that tribes have typically been given 30 days to adopt new regulation after they adopt a rule. And with the implementation of the technical standards, we suggested in our draft to the NIGC a period of 12 months. At last blush, I believe the NIGC has changed that to 6 months. But I'm going to wait to see exactly how the final rule is published before we start making plans to accommodate those. But the NIGC is moving ahead, finalizing this rule that we started working on back in April of 2003. So it's been quite a long haul. So in addition to that, I mentioned a little bit earlier our efforts with the computer system at the facilities. Been meeting with officials at CNE yesterday and today, and be meeting again with them next week about the preparations to open up the West Alum Springs expansion as well as the Catoosa expansion. Right now, everything is on par for opening up West Alum Springs on November the 10th. We have resources dedicated to making sure that property, at least as far as we can help, is going to meet that deadline. I'm not going to take credit for or blame for anything that may happen on the construction side, but we are. I think everybody is ready and is able to meet the November 10 deadline. Immediately following that, we will be shifting our focus to the Catoosa facility. That deadline for opening that is still December 15th. So we are going to be going from one facility to the other, trying to get both of these expansions open and operating by first of the year. So we have quite a row to hoe, and we are hooked up. I've got a great bunch of people. They have been outstanding to work with, and to have them as part of my team, I feel fortunate to have them on board under the Gaming Commission. So with their hard work and dedication, I think we can pull this thing off. So we are, as you can see, we're busy doing a lot of things, but if there's ever anything that you have any questions for, feel free to ask. I believe Councilmember Watts here had a question about a regulation that we just proposed. It's been out for publication now for about a couple of weeks, and that deals with vendor licensing. We also have a regulation posted for environmental, public health, and safety regulations. That is in response to a regulation that the NIGC published a few months ago that prescribes certain measures that tribes have to have in place in order to license a facility. It puts in measures for food and water safety, general facility safety, emergency preparedness plans, things of that nature. On the vendor licensing side, we are looking at further implementing provisions of the compact that have recently been subject to some discussion with the state regarding the licensing of what we call non-gaming vendors. The compact clearly indicates that we have responsibility for licensing of non-gaming vendors. However, we want to use a common sense approach in how we implement that portion of that section of the compact. There are obviously certain vendors that we are not going to license. There are some that will be case-by-case basis, and there are some that are automatically covered. For instance, gaming vendors are specifically mentioned that they have to be licensed. For non-gaming vendors, anybody that does business with the casino over $25,000 in a year is subject to licensing. However, you start looking at vendors as an accounting function, and you have a situation where you have the Cherokee Nation is listed as a vendor, the Gaming Commission is listed as a vendor, PSO, City of Catoosa, City of Rowan. These types of vendors are the ones that we are going through and trying to set aside, if you will, so that we focus only on the ones that were intended to be covered by this. And those are the ones that are doing business with and have access to our gaming facilities. So we are going to work with CNE in the process of implementing this regulation to only focus on those vendors that need to be subject to licensure, and those that aren't, we will, I think, employ the spirit of the law rather than the exact letter of the law, rather than licensing everybody as the compact would imply. I think it was really truly meant to license those companies that were having access to our facilities or doing a large amount of business with our facilities. So we're trying to use a common sense approach in how we apply those particular provisions. But if you have any questions as we go along through that, if you have any questions on what I've said today, I'll be glad to answer any of those.
Any questions, comments, Mr. Buzzer?
I got a question, Jamie, and it may not be in your particular area because on vendors for food, do you know if they follow the code under the Cherokee Nation food codes? Or how do they operate? I guess what brought this to mind is the incident over Love Scrub.
Right. As far as food vendors go, right now, none of the food vendors that CNE does business with has any responsibility for preparation or service of food on the site. It's all done by CNE employees. But the CNE employees and everybody that runs the food and beverage outlets, they are subject to not only our scrutiny, but scrutiny by the tribe, particularly under environmental health through Lisa West and her group, where they go in and do routine inspections to verify that all of the food is being handled properly, that all of the equipment is functioning properly, and that storage of food is done properly as well. So,
but they are going to be vendors in West Holland Springs.
There are going to be some food vendors in there, and as part of the environmental public health and safety regulations that I mentioned earlier, that is covered in there, that anybody that operates in our facilities, they're going to be governed by whatever law the tribe has on its books, whether it is a federal law that we have adopted or said that we were going to follow, or whether it's a tribally developed law. Whatever law is governing whatever service area it is, whether it be in food service or if it's in construction or storage of chemicals or anything like that, all of that is going to be subject to tribal law.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Jamie, for that brief report.
I try to talk as fast as I can.
Mr. Hembry, codification.
Yes, with the leaving of our esteemed colleague Becky Johnson, we're going to be short on the codification members or the working group. However, Mr. Morton has informed me that the two new attorneys, and what are their names?
Brandy Inman and Chrissy Nemo.
They're going to be assisting Mr. Morton and I in the codification process. They're being sworn in today. We had planned on meeting after the meeting, today, but we didn't know this was their swearing in date. We will meet early next week with all four of us and divide up the the titles and continue our diligent work on it.
Great, thank you. We do have a question, sorry.
Tom, do we have any idea what the approximate cost is going to be of that? Doing all-
How big is my budget?
You gonna need more?
Yeah, and I was just talking about this to Ms. Knight, is that this is going to be a very a good process for especially the new attorneys from Cherokee Nation to get involved in, because number one, they will become extremely familiar with our statutes. I continue to work on it, but it really isn't cost effective for me to redo the whole codification. I try to, maximize my hours, for the benefit of the entire council. So I try not to waste, I wouldn't say waste, but burn up a lot of time on codification. But with the two new attorneys and under Mr. Morton's guidance, I believe that we will be able to maximize their utility on that.
And is the end result going to be that, like an agreement with West Publishing, that if someone wants to purchase the books, once your work is completed?
Yeah, once the work is completed, now we're going through these acts. There are some things that are we're going to have to change because of our new constitution, and on just some acts have been literally, they're not relevant anymore. So when we get a final product, we're going to present it to the Rules Committee, and whatever enactments need to be officially passed or repealed by the council. That'll happen as just like any other law, okay? And then so when that final product is done, it's gone through Rules and it's gone through the full council, we will contract with West Publishing, Lexus, or some type of publication to put them in a bound volume so they can be purchased by the public at large.
Ms. Jordan? That's all. Thanks, Todd. Nathan, is there anything to report on GEG?
Not this month. There's still the pending investigation and a pending case in our tribal court on the civil litigation.
Okay, thank you. Moving on down to old business. The legislative act amending the criminal code. Ms. Calmwatts?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We've been working on this since May, so I would like to move to approve the act as provided both by email, and you should have a copy in front of you.
Second.
Moved and seconded.
And I think my co-sponsor, David Thornton, seconded that. Is that probably it? No, just the first one.
Any discussion? Any discussion? All in favor? This is an act. You want by acclamation or?
I would love to have it by acclamation, but I don't know if that'll happen.
Just do a roll call.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. Thornton.
do we discuss the age differentials, or are they already put into the act now?
I don't believe it's in this particular act.
It isn't.
Okay.
Can I answer that? The one that's in the act that you were provided is the federal one that Ms. Sharon Wright discussed with you earlier. Those are the ages that are in there.
But that's not in the first act on the issue.
This is the post-conviction supervision
Okay.
and mandatory minimum sentences in the order that it's in.
It is in this one?
Yes.
On the criminal code?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, it is in this one.
Okay. Are you suggesting a friendly amendment, Mr. Thornton?
I'd like to suggest a friendly amendment to that.
Okay.
And what is that?
What's your amendment?
My amendment would be the age of consent for sexual intercourse be 16. The minimum age for the victim, age below an individual who should not consent is 14. Minimum age of defendant in order to prosecute. This is the age below which an individual cannot be prosecuted for engaging in sex activities with minors. That would be 18. And that little scenario is if the victim is under 14. Sexual intercourse with someone else than 14 years of age is illegal regardless of the age of the defendant. Individuals over 14 years of age and less than 16 years of age can only consent to sexual intercourse with someone who is less than 18 years of age. In both cases, being married to a victim is an acceptable defense.
Todd, did you understand and get all that?
No.
That's what we were trying to figure out.
Okay, the order of the, on the agenda is a legislative act amending certain sections of the criminal code relating to sex crimes and other crimes against the person. And I'm looking at that, and we're looking at the age of consent, which is section 56, and you're talking about rape being defined. Okay, so that is section 56.
It's on page 36.
Page 36, section 1111, rape defined. Okay, and subsection A sets out those.
I'm sorry, Todd, hold on just a second. I don't think everyone knows where you're speaking from.
Okay, we are reading from legislative act amending certain sections of the criminal code relating to sex crimes and other crimes against the person. Okay, that's the title of the act. You would turn to page 36 of that document, where it defines rape.
Madam Chair, I passed around, I anticipated that we might have discussion on the age, and so I passed around a single sheet to help guide everyone to the 3 sections that have to do with age. And so at the top of that one page, and it should have gotten around the room by now, this.
No, I don't have a copy.
It was sent that way, so I don't know who stopped it, but they need to take one and pass it. So it's just a single sheet that'll help guide us through this, because I anticipated we would have age issues. Amendment.
When this question was brought before the Rules Committee last month, there was a series of questions, and the guidance of the council at that time was to adopt the federal rule, which Marshal Wright had explained, which is 12 and 4 years, or that dichotomy. My understanding is that you wish to set the age at 16, consent at the age of 16, but with a 4-year swing either way of that, is that, or a 2-year swing? Nothing below 16?
Nothing below 14.
Okay, well,
15 and 16, nothing above 17. 18 would be prosecutable.
Okay. So a 16-year-old, a 14-year-old could consent with a 16-year-old and 17-year-old, correct?
Right.
Okay. So it'd be a 3-year swing from 16.
14 to 17. Well, from 16 up, there's consent.
16 you're fine, okay. And but 2 years that a 16-year-old could consent with a 14-year-old. Correct?
So anyone over age 14 can consent to someone else up to age 18.
17 or 18?
17. If you're 18, you can.
All mine's clear, okay.
But a 16-year-old can consent to anyone.
Yes.
16-year-old, you're
We can't hear you, Ms. Town. Mr. Thornton has the floor.
16-year-old enough to consent to sexual activity. A 14-year-old can consent to someone up to the age of 17. Correct?
Right.
You said 17. You said 17, right?
Well, they can't consent to an 18-year-old.
Anyone under 18,
Anyone under 18.
18 to 14 actually, or 17 to 14. I understand. Does it,
Ms. Count Watts?
I just wanted to make sure that they were clarifying that, so my mind's clear.
I just want him to read it again now that we've got the form. I think you were reading from this. Where the victim is under the age of, is that where you wanted to put 16?
Age of consent is an individual that can legally consent to sexual intercourse under any circumstances at 16. Minimum age of victim, age below an individual cannot consent at 14.
Mrs. Thorne, did you say below 14, but they could at 14?
Yes.
Okay.
And then there's an age differential there. And the minimum age of the defendant in order to prosecute, this is the age below which an individual cannot be prosecuted for engaging in sexual activities with minors, and that's 18. If they're below 18 and they're over, and they're 14 and over, they can consent to 17. And then sexual intercourse, and that's what I was saying, with someone less than 14 years of age is illegal regardless of the age of the defendant. Individuals over 14 years of age, less than 16 years of age, up to 14 or 15, can only consent to sexual intercourse with someone who is less than 18 years of age. And then in both cases, by being married, it's acceptable to defend.
Yeah, is that marriage before or after?
I'm not being out in the bushes watching, I'll tell you that.
I mean, in all seriousness though,
Right.
if a child was to be produced and they got married, are you saying let's don't charge them at that
Right.
point? Okay. So marriage is a exception.
Any other questions?
A lot of people don't like the 16 consent, but, you know, I know people that quit school at the age of 16. And at the age of 16, they go out in the world and work, and, you know, they pretty much have their own life.
Well, the reason I asked if I still had the floor about the marriage as an exception, it hadn't been too long ago, and I think, Brad, you might have talked about this in one of the meetings where the couple had gotten married and they still sent the boy to prison and then made him register as a sexual offender, and he can't get a job to support his family now that involves 3 children. So, in seriousness, if the couple did get married, I'm assuming you find that to be an exception.
Yeah, in both cases.
Okay. And I just want to be clear on that.
Mr. Garvin?
I'm assuming we're talking about opposite sex, aren't we? Not the same sex.
Male or female?
well, no, Mr. Garvin, we have passed an act in the Cherokee Nation a couple years ago that defines marriage between a man and a woman, so.
We're not talking marriage, so we're talking sex, aren't we?
Mr.
I'm not.
Yes, sir.
I beg you to stop.
Martin, was that all that you're requesting on your amendment?
Yes, and I want to, in all the state laws in the United States, you'd be surprised how many of them is 12 years old consent. And I've got a little deal here, if you want to go to it on the computer, where it tells it all, and it gives each state, it tells exactly what's happening in each state, state by state. Some of them look ridiculous to me, but thank you.
Your statement was less than 18, is that correct?
On what?
on the consent, they had to be less than 18? Because
Mistake.
my only point to this is there's a whole lot of seniors who turn 18
Right.
in their senior year. I know I keep going back to prom, but prom's in the spring. You have a whole bunch of 18-year-olds. That's my
Or even
only.
19.
Well, depending on what county you're in, maybe. But you're going to have a whole bunch of 18-year-olds. So I just want to be clear that your statement was less than 18. So you're taking half the.
That's the state law right now.
Okay, that's all, I'm just making sure we're clear. I'm fine.
If you want to bump it up to 18, I don't have any problem with it. Make it less than 19. No, and that's up to the chair, or the way to make the motion.
Madam Chairman, if I may, I just want to read what Becky and I have marked through here to make sure that it is the motion as Mr. Thornton has stated, okay? All right. It would be under section 11, subsection B. Rape under subsection A of this section is without the consent of the person, number one, where the victim is under the age of 14 years of age, or two, the victim is 14 or older, but has not yet attained the age of 16, except when A, the victim otherwise consents, and B, the accused is not required to register as a sex offender, and C, the accused is less than 18 years of age, and then we delete the rest of what is on your paper. The numbers that I heard you state, that sounds like that's the numbers we would plug in as I read. Is that correct, Mr. Thornton?
Ms. Fishing Hawk?
So somebody that's 14 years old and 9 months can't consent.
14 years and plus 9 months? Is that what you
14
said?
years and 9 months.
Yes, to someone
16
who
or
is
younger.
up to 18 years
Yeah.
old.
Up to 18?
Up to 18.
17 and 11 months old. 28 days.
Yeah.
Tina, what?
Is that all, Jody? Ms. Fishing Hawk? Is that all? Ms. Coates?
I'm inclined to, I don't know, it's Kara's motion and Mr. Thornton's friendly amendment, but my initial reaction to it is that the federal guidelines seem a little more, again, give a little more room for individual sorts of situations that do come up. I can see, if I'm understanding correctly, a situation under Mr. Thornton's proposed amendment where a 15-year-old who has a 17-year-old boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, and maybe the 17-year-old turns 18 a few months before the 15-year-old turns 16, and there's a window in there where an irate parent, can get a charge in. And the discussion about marriage, I could even envision situations where marriages take place in order to avoid prosecution for rape from occurring. And as I noted here, that's a shotgun and a bigger shotgun in a way. So I just think that there's, I don't know. I think the federal guidelines to me look like there's a little bit more leeway there to take into account the many, just the range of individual circumstances that are likely to arise.
Ms. Coates? Dr. Cobb?
Todd, when you read section 2C, you said is less than, and the actual wording is the accused is no more than. That's completely two different meanings.
Yeah, and you would mark out more than.
So you're saying mark it out and
less than.
Okay, the way the proposed amendment stands. That's what I want to be clear on. That's all. Thank you.
Ms. Jordan?
Todd, where does the marriage exception come in on the statute?
I haven't seen the, now, where is it? I don't know. Okay. But when we're talking about the marriage, if you have sexual intercourse, okay, under these guidelines, that's where the crime occurs. And that would be, you couldn't be able to cure it, cure the crime, or there's no defense if you later marry, okay? So, I mean, we would have to change the law drastically to have a marriage exception. But because the intercourse between the two minors or whatever would happen pre-marriage, because otherwise, I mean, if if you qualify to be married in the Cherokee Nation or the state of Oklahoma and you're married, well, you're welcome to have sexual intercourse, and there is no rape. So when we're talking about rape as defined, you're talking about premarital. You can't. I have not seen a law where rape could be cured by marriage.
I don't even see the first part in here, though.
About what?
That you got these ages in here.
Mm-hmm.
Where is if the couple is married?
It's not in there.
Okay.
We'd have to work on that.
Because they can go down here to the courthouse, and even though they don't have to ask the judge if they're 18, if they're younger than 18, they can go in and ask the judge, and if he finds a valid reason to let them get married, then they can be married and go home, and they might be 14 and whatever, and violate this portion of the statute. So don't you what I'm hearing from Mr. Thornton is if they're married, you want it in here, that's an exception.
Mm-hmm. So go down here, and I don't know if they may have changed the law, but I know when I got married, I had to have consent to get married from my parents, and that was in the state of Oklahoma.
But
if you're 14 or 15 years old, your parents are going to have to give consent for you to get married.
Well,
or 16 or 17 or 18.
Not if you want to go in and ask the judge for permission. There's an exception. Yeah, you can go in, and if you give him a valid reason why you want to get married, you don't have to seek your parents' consent. Usually it's because they're expecting, and their parents don't want them to get married, but they want to get married. And if he finds that as a valid reason, then he can waive the consent of the parents. So you could have young people getting married, they're under 18, that their parents don't necessarily agree to it. And I kind of agree with you, if you don't put that exception in there, then those parents may be aggravated enough that when these young people go home, and even though they're married, they go on to tribal land that we're in charge of, and they call the tribal marshal, Sharon, and say, come out and get this fella, he's raped my daughter, even though they're married. I can perceive of a way that could happen. So if you don't have what you were talking about, marriage as an exception in there, it could very well happen. And I can think of about 2 or 3 couples that would have applied to in the last year, that had went to the courthouse without their parents. They had a valid reason why they wanted to get married. The judge allowed them to get married. Then when they go home, of course, holy heck's going to be raised. And the parents are looking for retribution, I guess, of some sort. So you might want, if you are serious about your marriage as an exception, it probably needs to be put somewhere in here.
Well, this is right out of the state law.
Marriage was an exception.
Marriage is an exception.
Is that all, Ms. Jordan?
Yes, I just wonder where Todd's going to put it. I mean, if that's part of your friendly amendment.
Mr. Morton, did you have a comment? You stood up there kind of fast.
You may need to clarify that it would be sex during marriage that is consensual. It wouldn't be a defense to non-consensual sex during marriage.
Because a man can rape his wife.
Yes.
Ms. Camelot?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm unclear, my mind was clear on the age part, but I'm not clear on the marriage deal now. But because of the debate that's occurred, I have no problem with the age change, but I think it needs to be a vote up or down by this body as an amendment. And whatever the body decides, I will go forward with as a package. But it needs to be separate. We need to vote on the age deal. Does it need to change, or does it need to stay the federal? Does it need to be the recommendation by Mr. Thornton? Or does it need to stay the federal?
Okay.
And then there needs to be a separate vote on the marriage thing, which I'm not clear what that is, that amendment, so.
Mr. Henry?
Maybe you have some.
Becky, this is Becky's language, and she I think, clarified it. You would change the language in 2C, if you could follow along with me, where it would say, C, the accused is less than 18 years of age, or the accused is married to the victim, because you already have consent up there in A. It would either be A, B, or C, and you just put a marriage clause, basically, in C. So therefore, a person could consent to someone less than 18 years of age, or if they happen to be married to them, and be a little bit older than 18, they would still have, that would still be an exception.
I would accept that.
Mr.
I don't know about it. Part of my free.
Mr. Crittenden?
That's what, that addressed what I was talking about, or going to mention. I like the fact that marriage between two people can keep them from being prosecuted under this if it's consensual. But I didn't think that once the crime or once the offense had been committed by two young folks, that they ought to be able to run down to the court or someplace and get married all of a sudden. So I believe Becky or Todd or somebody's got a fix on it.
Okay. So the friendly amendment, Mr. Thornton, you accepted that change that was recommended?
Right. Dr. Cobb, would you want to move that from 17 to 18? I have no problem with that. Because I realize that we do have high school seniors that are 18.
I personally think it needs to say no more than 18 years of age.
Okay.
That's what I personally
Or
think.
less than 19.
Okay.
Or less than 19, yeah, less than 9. I personally think it needs to at least say that.
I have no problem with that.
Okay, Mr.
You accept
Henry
that?
and Miss Becky, are you all clear?
I know.
I'm waiting for acknowledgement from the chair, which I've not received.
Okay, you want to restate the amendment?
Well, I think it would be proper at this point to ask the sponsor, since these are all friendly amendments, if she accepts
Well,
everything that we
well,
just
they
talked
are.
about. Yeah.
Can't we just do it in one friendly amendment, as Mr. Thornton suggested, and he accepted Brad's?
Well, as a friendly amendment, I mean, it is suggested to the sponsor whether she takes it or not. And if the sponsor does not take it, they can be moved as individual amendments to the act. Right now, what is on the board as a friendly amendment with Mr. Thornton's suggestion is number one, where the victim is under the age of 14 years of age, or the victim is 14 or older but has not yet attained the age of 16, except when the victim otherwise consents, and B, the accused is not required to register as a sex offender, and C, the accused is less than 19 years of age, or the accused is married to the victim. That is your proposed friendly amendment, correct? Okay, I think it would be proper at this point then to ask the sponsor if she accepts that friendly amendment in toto.
Ms. Calmont?
I would like to accept it, but if it's going to create where I'm unclear what the body feels, because we need to move the legislation forward. So I don't know if it needs to be a vote up or down. It's not because I'm opposed to it. I'm going to accept it and let's just see what happens. We're going to vote up or down and be done. All right, I'm accepting it. I'm clear. My mind is clear. I think my second's mind is clear, so thank you, Ms. Madam Chair.
Ms. Jordan?
Now my question is, how, Becky, does that affect 41B2 and 1123.1A2? Because they're, I think, based on ages too.
Yes, they would need to be changed to reflect this same language, because all three of those sections are identical.
If we're going to approve this whole section, then could we have you and Todd make those corrections and read those to us so that all minds are clear as to what we're doing here?
Simply, it would be a motion to make the age requirements uniform throughout all three acts. The three sections, excuse me.
Okay, first we're working on the friendly amendment,
Which has been,
which has been proposed and accepted. Okay, all in favor? No, this is roll call. It's an act with the friendly amendment. Is everyone clear
Are
on
we
the?
voting on one act?
yeah, voting on one act, this act.
Right.
Are they voting to change all three?
We're voting on the one that was
All
presented.
three, because he wants
Do
to.
you want to have them change the other two companion areas to go with this one so that when you pass the act, all the ages are correct?
We'll have to have another amendment to that one then, won't we?
What I would recommend, with the indulgence of the committee, is that that the friendly amendment goes uniform throughout the act.
I had assumed it would.
Okay.
So if I didn't make that clear, I apologize.
Yeah. That we were making a uniform, standard age requirement on all sections of the criminal code dealing with sex offenses.
Everyone clear? Ms. Count Watts? Okay, roll call, please. Yes, you accept the legislation as written with the amendment.
By acclamation.
All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. Okay, Ms. Count Watts, there's one of them.
Thank you.
Okay, item 2 under old business is amending the criminal code in regard to sentencing.
Madam Chair, I would request that we move to approve this as provided in front of you.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by, you want this by acclamation? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And item 3, amending the code concerning prisons and reformatory, sex offender registration, and post-conviction supervision. Ms. Count Watts.
I would move for approval as provided in front of you.
Moved and second. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, now item 4 is discussion and possible action of officials' compensation. Mr. Garvin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to withdraw this from the table.
Okay. Item 4, the compensation is withdrawn. New business?
Well,
Yes, Mr.
I have
Garvin.
an amendment to this. Madam Chair, change the agenda for NCAI resolution for membership for 2008-2009 for this month.
And the motion is to amend the agenda to include the NCAI resolution. Mr. Baker seconded. All in favor of amending the agenda, signify by under the item 6 under new business. Signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Okay, the agenda is amended. Okay, mortgage foreclosures. Nathan, are you going to do that one? It says discussion only.
I can answer some questions. I believe there's someone here from the actual department too, if they can answer some questions as well.
There is a request to, I think Ms. Jordan, you requested that this be included on this agenda.
As I recall, you sent out, or your department sent out, a list of how many foreclosures you had in your office. And I think it might be enlightening for this body to know the amounts of each one of the foreclosures and the possible loss to the tribe or the housing authority. I guess most of those have been assigned to the tribe. So I guess there was probably only about really truly 6 first mortgage foreclosures, which involve Title VI houses. And potentially what happens on those is you get that house back. So you're getting the asset back for another family. You'll retool it and give it to another family on another mortgage. I guess I'm more interested in the second mortgage foreclosures, which are the lump sum amounts that we're giving for down payment and closing, and then we're taking a second. And those can be, I believe, upward, Mr. Morton, correct me, of $15,000. And there was like maybe 3 pages of those. And so you're starting to get into some money because you're not recovering any money on those foreclosures. You have what is called, or to my knowledge, I don't believe there's ever been a dollar recovered on a second mortgage foreclosure by the housing authority or probably now by Cherokee Nation.
It's normally difficult that
It's
there
a
be
very
anything
soft
left.
second. Yeah, it's a very...
After the first has been satisfied, there's really
For
hardly ever
folks that don't understand, when it goes to foreclosure, if you're familiar with a sheriff's sale, generally it's picked back up by the first mortgage holder. So then your soft second is just lost and can no longer, basically you can no longer recover that money. I guess you could go under the note.
And we counterclaim or cross-petition for the note and the mortgage. So we have a personal judgment and have a second interest in the property, which normally, after all the costs and everything been paid, there's nothing left to pay to the second. But we still have a judgment against them personally, which saves us from suing them separately later, which saves some money up front, but then we have to try to collect.
But in the real world of collection, it's a hard collection, if ever. And I think those could involve upwards of $15,000 a shot.
I believe some do. I can go through each one and put the amount in.
And that would be my question that I would pose to Mr. Morton, is that maybe he enlighten us next month as to the amounts in question, so that you can kind of tally up within your head, for lack, I guess, of a better word, how many houses we might be actually losing, how much dollars we're actually losing.
Do you want the amount of the first as well?
I think let's just take that list that was sent to everyone, and let's put dollar amounts with it, and then you can kind of see really the direction. That's really not bad. Six first mortgage foreclosures. I don't know how many.
Well, on the seconds, do you want to know what the first mortgage is that we have the second to as well, or just?
Because there's another thing that we haven't mentioned. You can, as a second mortgage holder, you could go in and buy out the first mortgage guy, and you might want to try to take over that house. So that may be a way for us to kind of get some of our money back. And I don't think that's been something that we've been looking at, because the housing markets took a dip, and I think it even took a bigger dip this weekend. So I don't know that there's equity.
And they normally buy it back at 2/3 the value.
Okay. So let's get a little more, if we could,
I can add that to each one.
more specific numbers so that you all can kind of see where our mortgage foreclosure rate is and where it's headed.
Is the objective to create some type of legislation to help prevent this, or?
Possibly just to call attention that maybe we've got to be a little bit better in our selection of our people to give our money to. I mean, obviously, if they're only going to live there a couple of months and lose their house, we might want to direct them to another type of housing that wouldn't involve as much money, maybe a rental assistance deal. Some people just are not quite ready for true home ownership, and we've let them slip through the cracks, give them the $15,000 and send them down the road. But if we if they're not quite ready, this may be something Anna wants to address.
Because my role is very limited for the legal side. When, especially on a second mortgage, when they file with a mortgage, you have to assert your interest or you lose it. So I have a very narrow focus on this, and all this is public information, so I can compile the
And
data
not
for you.
knowing what took place before they took over the foreclosures, we might want a list of those, just so we know, are we about where a bank would be in terms of foreclosures? Are we higher? Are we lower? I hope that we're within the percentage range of a normal bank. If we're not, then we might want to consider at some point some adjustments in our policies so that we get a better handle and maybe we don't lose so much money. And this is no different than what a bank would be doing.
Ms.
A
Knight,
bank
did you
would be
have a
looking at the
comment
same
in
thing.
regard to that?
I do have some information here that we had been preparing to submit, and this is a copy of the actual housing program foreclosures. Now, I don't have any of the dollar amounts, but it's listed by year for 2005, 6, 7, and 8, and then the total. And it shows the mutual help homes, and now those will be evictions and not foreclosures. The mortgage buy-down program that the Housing Authority started before the mortgage assistance program, the mortgage assistance program, and the Title VI. And then we have the percentages broke down over to the left of the 3.18% on the mortgage buy-down, 2% on the MAP, and 11.68% on Title VI. Now, we're nowhere near the range of a bank. That's because of the people that, the families that we're loaning to or that we're providing assistance to. We do have some additional information on the back page that talks about the current mortgage crisis that's happening. And I will say that the industry does expect a 20% foreclosure rate on subprime loans, and that's defined in several different ways, as an adjustable rate mortgage, as pre-penalty fees. The mortgage brokers sometimes would falsify income to try to get people into a house. And then on the very last paragraph, I talk about the Cherokee Nation homeownership programs today, and a lot of the changes that we made in assuming the mortgage assistance program have been directed towards trying to reduce this foreclosure and prepare people. So we send them through self-sufficiency counseling to try to increase their credit scores to help them get a market rate loan. We work with them on debt reduction so that they can afford a mortgage. We also have a mortgage officer that looks at and approves every single mortgage before we provide the closing costs and the down payment assistance. And we're looking to see, is the rate acceptable? Are there excessive fees? Can the person really afford the home? Does their debt to income ratio fall within normal levels? And so we're hoping that some of these actions, we're confident that some of these actions is going to stop foreclosures in the MAP program. And I will say that the self-sufficiency counseling has been going on it'll be 2 years in January. Not one of the self-sufficiency clients have been foreclosed upon. So we take that as some success. So this was just some additional information we were working on. We're still trying to gather some other information to try to see what, on a national level, low-income family foreclosure rates are so that we can better compare it, because we really can't compare what we're doing with a regular bank that's making conventional loans. So that's something that we're still trying to gather, and we'll bring that forth when we get that to you.
Mr. Buzzer?
Just to follow up on what Councilor Lori was talking about a while ago, and I realized, $15,000 is a pretty good sum of money, but what I wanted to touch on is we're going to break some stuff down. I'd like to see how many of those foreclosures were mobile homes versus a stick house or a house. Mm-hmm. And then I'd also like to see how many we furnished the septic, the sanitation facility for. Because you're talking about another $10,000 if that's included. So you're actually looking at $25,000 into those things. And you just touched on something a while ago about if we could pick up a second mortgage on something that may be worth it. So it may be worth looking into that, especially if we've got $25,000 talking to do with it. do anything like that.
And we certainly can do that, and that's something that we can look at on each one of these now. Typically, when people get foreclosed upon, it's within the first 2 years of living in the home. And so typically, there's not enough equity for us to go in and take out a first mortgage company, but it's certainly something we can analyze.
And the other thing is the land. You know, if the land is donated by a parent or grandparent, that has some value also too. Maybe $10,000 an acre or $5,000, whatever. So I think we need to really take a good look at it and see if there's something we may want to do on taking up a second mortgage.
And for future loans, that'll be even easier because you won't see the days of loaning people 100% purchase price on a home are pretty much gone. And so as we get into that, you'll have more of an opportunity to take over because some of the loan products, they were even loaning them 110 or 120% of value. So they start out with negative equity to begin with. So.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions for Anna or Mason?
Would it be possible for us to carry this over for a discussion only for next month with this additional, you all bringing in this additional information? And I want to stress, this is not a reflection on your program or the past program that administered this. I think as the stewards of the money, we just need to be sure we understand in our minds when this money goes out in this nature, what the loss is for us as a nation.
And it's very devastating for a family to go through foreclosure. So we try very hard not to set them up for failure, and that's a big piece of it too. So.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Item 2 is an act amending the licensing code and including utility vehicles. Mr. Hoskin, you're a sponsor of that. Would you like to present that?
Sure. What this would primarily do is give us the ability to tag those little trucks, those little, they call them kind of Japanese mini trucks that we're seeing increasingly as gas goes through the roof. The state of Oklahoma did that in its last legislative session, so this brings us in line so we can compete with our citizens for their business at our tag office. It also appears, and I'd ask Ms. Webson to clarify, does it for the first time allow active military to have a discount? Have we not previously done
That one, we don't have the active military in it. It's the only one I haven't gotten in there yet. So I didn't get the language for active military in there yet.
At Section 5, Paragraph 2A(I), it does appear to say any active or former, so that does appear to be in there.
That was already there. I didn't change it, so.
So it is in the.
So it was already there.
So it's okay, all right. That clarifies something we talked about in the earlier meeting. So with that, Madam Speaker, I move for approval.
By acclamation. Do I have a second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Thank you, Mr. Hoskin. Item 3 is an amendment to the licensing and tax code covering farm trailers and farm trucks and farm tractors. Ms. Webster?
Basically, what this does is there's a cap of 4 tags for a farm on your farm permit, and what this does is it takes that exception away from businesses who have corporate farms, and if they would provide their farm return, and that would show that they are a commercial farm, and then that would take that cap away from them as far as a business is concerned. But for an individual, it still leaves a cap of 4. You're allowed 4 farm tags per individual.
Do I have a motion to approve?
Move for approval.
Second. Moved in second. Any discussion? By acclamation, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Don't leave yet. The next is an act covering sales tax, adding exemption for nonprofits.
Okay, what this does, it allows us, there was nothing in our law that allowed us to recognize the tax exemptions for schools, churches, and organizations like that. This allows us to be able to recognize that exemption as it's issued by the Internal Revenue Code in our gift shops, different places like that, for sales tax purposes.
Do I have a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Moved in second. Now, Mr. Soap.
Yeah, Chair, can you kind of go over what this items this might cover sundries or whatever that this would?
It's mainly for the gift shops and areas like that. We have a lot of the schools that have JOM programs that come in and they buy a lot of their arts and crafts supplies that they use in their programs through the gift shops, and we weren't able to give them that exemption on the sales tax, and this will allow them to give that exemption as a school has in any other facility when they go out and purchase things. But it just allows us to give them that exemption on their sales tax.
Are there any other types of
Churches?
sales that we do anywhere?
It's mainly through the gift shops.
Okay. I mean, I know that's the intent, but I was just curious if there's any other.
I don't know as far as the convenience stores.
Outposts and all
That's what I
that.
started to say. I don't know as far, only if they were purchasing it for the business. It wouldn't, because we had this question arise. We actually had some employees of an organization that was tax exempt went into the convenience store over here and wanted tax exempt on their pop and their candy bars. That's not what that applies to. It is if you're purchasing items for the business, not for the individual employees, for their personal use.
All right.
So,
Ms. Countywide?
I'm satisfied, thank you.
All in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Item 5 is an act authorizing the legislative branch to maintain the citizen database. Who wants to present that? Do you, Ms. Jordan, or Mr. Baker?
I can start. This came from, Trent and I had requested a list from Norm Merriman's group of the citizens that participated in the clothing voucher program last year. And we thought it was no big deal. Norma thought it was no big deal to get a list of the ones so that we could send out cards telling them that on this date and this date they could come out and reapply to help their kids get school clothing. And then it became a little bigger deal, and then they wanted it asked the Government Records Act, and so we did that, and then they asked for a 10-day extension, and finally they said that we could have it like the day before the last set of clothing vouchers were going to be given out. But then we got a letter saying that no, that's just for the programs, and that the only one that should be contacting the citizens is the administration or the chief. And well, I disagree so wholeheartedly. I think that if you have people in your district that whether it be LIHEAP or children's clothing or any of those programs, if we could be able to take the initiative to tell them when and where and how, then we're just doing our job. I mean, that's what we're hired for, is to be their liaison. They're the ones that vote us in, and they expect to hear from us on what's taking place and what's being done. Because, folks, I'm telling you, all your people don't read the newspaper. That's not it. And yes, word of mouth gets out at schools and flyers, but it doesn't get to everybody. And these are important programs that mean a lot. And a week later, you get a phone call that says, "Well, I didn't know when it was." And I've got 4 kids, and I'm a single mom, and how do I get close to my kids now? And like I say, it was as innocent could be. We thought it was a good idea and something that we could do. And so basically this act pretty much says that as the council, we can get the databases, and we can maintain them and guarantee them privacy, and be able to contact them on the different programs as they come up, and whether it's scholarships or what it is. And I just I think it's our job and our duty, and something that we ought to be able to do, and maybe that we should be doing. So I'm going to put it in the form of a motion to pass this act.
Do I have a second? Second. We did second, now discussion. Ms. Jordan?
And I know, like state of Oklahoma. They use the voter rolls, but here and of course I guess in the state of Oklahoma you know who your citizens are because it's everybody on the street. We don't know many times who our citizens are. And if we have to go out and develop the same database that's already available, then we'll know who our citizens are probably 3 or 4 years from now. I wanted to ask next for my elderly citizens so that I could talk to them about the heating program that'll be coming up here in the fall. But we won't have that information timely if we don't keep our own database here. And that was the reason for their dates of birth. I don't want their social security numbers. I don't want their Cherokee Nation numbers. I would like to have their date of birth because if they're in their 70s, there's a lot of programs that we can give them information on. If they're little kids, there's a lot of programs that we can give them information on. If they're there about scholarship age, there's some information that we can give them. So their age is somewhat important as to how we target them to get information out to them. And I don't want to take anything away from violating their privacy. This is why we were told that this was probably the proper method to go, was so we wouldn't be violating any law. And I went over this with Todd. In fact, Todd wrote this legislation for us so that we can maintain the database here. It will only be used for the purposes of giving out information to our constituents. It would be no different than if you were a senator or if you were a representative in the state of Oklahoma or in the U.S. Senate or the U.S. House. I'm sure all of you all get informational cards from your, or at least I do. I get one about every 3 months from my senator and representative, and I find that very informational on what's coming up in the Senate and the House, or programs that they know about that we might be interested in. And that's all that we're asking, is to at least be able to notify our constituents. I read the chief's letter, and with all due respect, surely he doesn't mean that the Constitution means he's the only one that communicates with the people. We are elected officials for the people. I'm sure that he's not saying that he's the only one that should get information out to the public. I'm sure I'm misreading this or misunderstanding this, because surely as their counselors, we're expected to get information out to them. And in fact, Counselor Watts, earlier I believe in the year, had a motion, and we all passed it, to put aside money so that we could mail out to our constituents. And I see this just as a follow-up, that now we've got the money to mail out, but we need to know where to mail it to.
Dr. Cobb?
A couple of comments about this legislation, a couple of comments, Councilor Gould, rebuttal, if you will, to Councilor Jordan. I'm sorry Councilor Jack Baker couldn't be here. I would be interested to see what conversations did take place on the constitutional conventions regarding some of the...
Here?
Oh, are you here, Jack?
No.
You lost him? You lost him?
I was there.
I would be interested to see, my first statement is about that. Was this addressed at the Constitutional Convention?
I think the only purpose, and Todd, correct me if I'm wrong, but the whole conversation about him being the only one is so we didn't have 15 people going to Congress and having 15 different stories. And the official line of the Cherokee Nation comes through him. But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about talking to constituents. We're not talking policy on government to government. And Correct me if I'm wrong.
My second thing is, have you had any feedback from anyone in registration regarding their thoughts on possibly doing this? Because I know right now, registration, I read the chief's letter, and evidently registration is the one that gets those lists together for the internal programs.
Brad, excuse me for a moment. Can we back up because Todd had a comment in regard to Mr. Baker's statement?
Yeah, that provision in the Constitution, I would agree with Mr. Baker, is when, you know, is in a general form, is that, you know, he's the one who directs communications for the Cherokee Nation government. He is the one who speaks with the President of the United States or the Bureau of Indian Affairs. He's the official spokesman for the government. And I believe, I believe that there may be a Cherokee Supreme Court case concerning this, and it might be even Phillips versus Eagle that may mention this in dicta actually. But it would be my opinion, and I think the opinion of other lawyers, that is not an exclusive power of the executive branch to communicate, to be the sole communicator to all Cherokee constituents concerning the government, Cherokee government, and that would be my opinion. And I don't believe that this would run afoul of the Constitution. But you know, even if let's take worst case scenario, because I received his, or let's take the chief's argument in its best light. What, you know, there'd be one easy way to fix that, and that would be in the use of list part. You would just delete you just delete the words the Cherokee Nation government, and that's it. You know, that if you wanted to totally take that argument out of hand, you would say that the tribal council shall use this list exclusively for communications with tribal citizens concerning council activities. I mean, there could be no argument that would be constitutional, because, you know, that'd be a separation of powers issue. You know, that no one branch can exercise the powers and duties of the other branch. So, I mean, if you wanted, and the council activities are so broad, and you still have, it would still reach every aspect of the Cherokee Nation government, since, you know, that's the budget alone to deal with every program that comes to the Cherokee Nation. But I'm just looking, you know, at the argument most favorable to the chief in that part of the letter.
Ms. Coates, did you have a comment in regard to that part of this?
About the discussion at the Constitutional Convention and the intent of it. I don't have a recollection about this discussion specifically at the convention, though. I had another comment, but I think I'm on your list, so I'll reserve it for.
Madam Speaker, that's all for.
Yes, Ms. Count Watts had her hand up, however, in regard to that particular issue.
No, I mean, I just wanted to make sure. I didn't know if you'd have got me on the list earlier. Sorry, I was just waving to make sure I was on there. So.
My second question is, have we had any feedback from anybody in registration, you know, on this at all? I mean, I know they're the ones that generate these lists internally for specific purposes. Is anybody?
Well, I mean, no, have not. However, I mean, we've got a list of all the citizens. I mean, we've got a list, we've got their address to a certain degree. And you know, this body has discussed it many times that, you know, let's get registration, let's get the election commission, let's get the all the data together so that we have a really good list. But the thing is we need to have the list and maintain it, that no matter where it comes from, but registration would be the easiest one to do, and them coming up with the list is almost as simple as pushing the button. I mean, for their names and addresses and dates. But you know, to be able for us to do a better job, as Tina said, that, you know, that birth date on there, so that you know, when there's senior programs, when there's kid programs, there's things like that. And of course, I'd like to even have it narrowed down to be able to pick up the phone and ask the program, to cut us a list of last year's participants. So that, you know, now it's narrowed it down not only to the right age group, but it's narrowed it down to the ones that were in the right income group for this particular piece of information. And, I mean, surely everybody here is wanting to do a better job, not a worse job. And if they needed clothes last year, the chance they're going to need clothes next year is the same. And if they had LIHEAP last year, now we do a better job with LIHEAP. I will admit, because we do send a letter out to LIHEAP in the summertime, and if they got LIHEAP and met the criteria, then they get a air conditioning deal. And the program does send a letter out saying LIHEAP's getting ready to start and this is when and where. But they don't do it for a clothing program. And there's other programs they don't do it for. And if they're not going to, then we ought to at least have the ability to try and help our people.
And my last comment is, I did want to point out.
One moment.
Oh, yes.
Is there any other comments in regard to his second question on where the information come from? Ms. Fitchingham?
I thought we learned in the meeting that me and you and Tanya was at with Julia, registration does not make them mail outs. It goes through Tanya.
Well, the lists come from registration, but
Leila, if I remember right, said she had nothing to do with it. She cannot generate lists herself because they won't let her, because that was something that was going to be addressed later. When Jack and Julia and everybody started talking about it, getting up to date lists. That's all I want to point out on that.
And with your indulgence, Madam Speaker.
Yes.
And my last comment, just in all playfulness, Councilor Jordan, I do want to point out that your comment about receiving things from mail-outs from the state reps, I would humbly ask that you consider that those are probably from voter registration lists, because I don't seem to get anything from the other political party. Mine are always from one political party, so I would imagine that those probably come from voter registration lists.
I actually got mine from both parties, but
I don't ever seem to get one from the other one, so.
you must be diehard one way or the other then. Just think it's a chance.
Is there anything else, Dr.
No, ma'am, I'm finished. Thank you.
Ms. Countwas, did you have?
Thank you. Yes, Madam Chair. The issue that seems to be before us today is whether or not we should have carte blanche as the legislative branch and as individual legislators have carte blanche access to personal and private information that would be kept in the citizenship registration database that is different than the voter registration database. I can't support that carte blanche access. When I talk to constituents, I believe that they understand that they register to vote, and that gives us some access to them, and they understand that's different, and they are opening themselves up to political or personal or whatever mailings and acknowledging themselves through that. In our voter registration database, we don't provide for birth dates, which is different than your state database. But I think I also hear confusion and frustration about what data the tribe actually has. So even if we were given access to the database for citizenship, we do not have information about those persons' incomes and those things. That's not kept in the citizenship data. We don't have that level of information, and we would automatically then, I believe, have access to their Social Security card numbers and all sorts of additional information, which scares me. I mean, that's why it's personal and private. I believe that we can run that information if they have passed on and they're not a living individual, but I understand there's federal regulations through the Bureau of Indian Affairs, who also we're contracted to do our citizenship, that keep that information private as long as that individual's alive. The frustrations I'm hearing, I think we should be dealing with in a manner different from this legislation. I would like to see this body ask for census of the Cherokee people to be taken, which would address bad addresses in both our citizenship database as well as our voter registration, potentially. It could address getting additional voters, because when we take our census workers were to go out, we could have them also ask point blank about voter registration, which would increase then our access in a positive way, I think, to citizens. And it could also contain the information that the U.S. Census provides, such as household income, number of people in household, and answer many of the questions that I think this body continually has and has been frustrated by. So currently, we don't have that kind of information. And I can't support today's question because of the privacy issues and such. And I think that as a legislator, I know I have access to that information in a different way, as the chief alludes to in his letter. We did talk about that the money that was allocated for the community meetings could be used for mail-outs, but I was very comfortable and very pleased with how the mail-out went through the administrative branch and reached our tribal citizens for the community meeting I just hosted. But in no way did I endorse, through earlier actions, creating a parallel citizenship database with us to have unfettered access to. So I hope that those earlier comments from another council member were not taken out of context, because I'm telling you from my own voice that I am not endorsing this. But I do believe we can continue with the path forward in utilizing the administrative branch's staff to make sure citizens get it. But the frustrations have to be addressed in a different manner than this legislation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Calmore. Any other questions? Todd? Oh,
Yes.
go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Julia, she was first. Okay. Not Paul.
Okay. First of all, I wanted to point out, I think, if I'm correct, Bill Don, help me, I talked to them about getting some information out, and they don't send out letters if you wasn't on the program the year before.
Right, that is absolutely correct.
Yeah, so the only ones that get it is the ones that participated the year before.
That's right.
Okay. And I have bought numerous state voter registrations, and they include date of birth, voters' history, voter credit, county commissioner district, school district, congressional district, phone numbers, driving directions, physical addresses, township range, mailing addresses, and that's just to name a few, because I buy them every 2 years. As for discussing the personal and private information and unfettered access, Tyler, we are just asking for date of birth and addresses. We ain't asking for no social, are we? Okay. And then the second thing I want to ask Todd or Melanie about, on this letter it says constituent contact is properly made by use of the voter registration database. I have a problem with that, because I don't care if you voted for me. I don't care if you didn't. I do not care if you are a voter, because I'm wanting access to every single one of my Cherokee people, and believe it or not, I'm actually wanting access to the 18-year-olds and under that qualify for scholarships, Cherokee Nation Community Youth Grant Program, and everything else, not just voters. To limit it to voters, I've got a problem with, because if we're all here just catering to voters, there's a heck of a lot of people out there that we're leaving out.
Question?
Yeah.
Well, I would agree with you that you are, you represent every Cherokee citizen in your district, regardless of their age, regardless whether they have a registered voter or not. So I agree with you. You know, communication should not be limited to those who are just registered to vote. In speaking with Mr. Morton and Ms. Knight, Secretary Knight, there are some questions, especially on maybe the 18-year-old, maybe the minor issue, that we would may want to limit this to individuals 18 years and older. And in the communication, you can say if you have children, they may apply for this and this program. That is a legitimate point as to whether whether a 13-year-old should get an unsolicited piece of mail. I understand that point, and that could be easily fixed. And in that regard, if the chair would indulge, I would pass to Mr. Morton.
Mr. Morton?
I had an opportunity to review the proposed act, and I was also checking it against the Constitution, other acts, and judicial decisions. And if you don't mind, could we pass this 1 month? Because I've had it a couple days, I'd like a little more time to look at it. And would you indulge me to have 30 days for me to do a more thorough search?
Ms. Council,
Move to table.
motion and a second to table. All in favor, signify by saying aye. All opposed, same sign. Okay, table to next month.
Thank you.
All right.
I do have one more question.
Okay, Ms.
Like when our employees get phone calls on their birthday, so is it that our employees are open, all our employees were allowed to know their date of birth, but not our constituents? I'm curious about that.
I have no problem with date of birth. The information that is readily available, if I just pick up a phone book, is your name, address, and phone number. Well, we're only asking for additional, information, which would be date of birth. The only issue that I would have would be on minors, soliciting, not soliciting, but sending mail to minors. That can be easily fixed, in my opinion.
That's easily fixed.
Before you or Nathan sit down, no, I need one. If all this information that's being requested, tell me how we can avoid the public from obtaining that information from a privacy aspect under FOIA or under GRA.
As written, I think that if you have the access to the information, I think they have access to the information.
That was what was bothering me.
And that's what I was looking at to see.
Consider and whenever you're...
Because you qualify as a public body under the definition, and it meets the definition of a public record.
Okay.
So, as FOIA is written now,
Right.
it would probably be disclosable. So if you have that information, they may be able to request it as well.
And let me go on the record, I don't necessarily agree with that. However, it is worth looking into. There's more than one way to get it done. Because I think it's
Sorry, Nathan, so will you include that in your discussion next month?
Yes, and that's what I wanted to look at.
Both sides,
Yes.
not a biased viewpoint, but Ms. Jordan.
And I would ask that our attorney work with him on resolving that issue.
We already started.
That's what we've been up here talking about. And yes, I will communicate with Mr. Morton and any other person at the AG's office to, if they have concerns, find ways to alleviate those concerns.
All right, item 6 is
And my question didn't get answered.
I don't know, what was your question?
It was about the employees, since they get phone calls from administration on their birthday. I guess that's open for us to get the employees' date of birth.
The birthdays.
Yeah.
That data doesn't come, obviously, from the registration database, it comes from the employee records. So that's specific to that. I mean, the chief doesn't have that type of access to registration. He doesn't have it on his computer. He doesn't request lists from registration of birth dates. So that comes out of the personnel records.
Okay, so can y'all just say this to employees to start with, same as you did again?
Under the GRA, I can furnish you with employee names and dates of birth.
Okay.
As long as they're not disclosed.
Okay, final comment, Mr.
Yeah.
Baker.
And Melanie, the second question is, I've been over in administration when the chief has been calling elders on their birthdays, and is that from his private list, or?
It must be, because he doesn't get a list from registration as far as I know, but I'll check on that and report back to you if you'd like to.
Thank you. Okay, item 6 is the NCAI resolution. Melanie, did you want to bring that forward? Which
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
The one that came in late?
The late resolution. This is for our renewal of membership in NCAI and the list of delegates to NCAI. And
Moved second, any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Good job. Any announcements? It's about minutes after 3. Entertain a motion to adjourn. All in favor, signify by saying aye. All opposed, same sign.